legged holding on to that ball.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's, I still don't know how he made that catch.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask about the expanded playoff. Does that change the mindset here that maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a cushion if a game, doesn't go your way?
I don't think it changes the mindset for us as coaches. Is what I mean. I think as coaches, you try to always have good perspective. I mean, it's hard to win. Maybe it changes the perspective for the fan base or something. And and we get away from if you lose a game, the world is over, and fire every player and every coach, and that you see in all over college football. It's really hard to win. And you see that it's more of I think an NFL mindset. There's very few NFL teams that I think, realistically say we're probably not going to lose a game all season, but it's about making the playoffs. That's really what everybody's goal is. And I think that is what will change gradually within the psyche of college football as it expands, and probably will expand more, is it's going to become all about the playoffs, which is fine. But I think there's probably unintended consequences for that too. Just like everything, in that, probably as we see guys opting out of bowl games and things like that, you'll probably see some guys, if you're 4-4 and probably out of the playoffs, probably see some guys head off to Arizona and train. It's probably an unintended consequence. You'll probably see some situations where, like you see in the NFL, the Ravens are in the playoffs. They got it locked up, right? They got the bye or whatever, and, they got one more game that really means nothing, right? Because it's all about the playoffs. So do you play Lamar in that game? And that's probably an unintended consequence in college, from a tradition standpoint is, maybe you're 11-0 and you got that rivalry game. But, you play your biggest foe next week in the conference championship, and if you win that game, you're going to get a bye. So those are things that are probably decisions you'll see play out all throughout college football, and which will probably, affect traditions and things like that. But, you got decisions to make if it's all about the playoffs, and that's one change. As we've expanded the playoffs from 2 to 4, it becomes more about the playoffs as opposed to the regular season. Regular season still obviously does matter because that's going to impact the playoffs, but I'm just talking about some of those unintended consequences. But from our standpoint, the psyche hadn't changed in that, we're all in trying to win every single game. But we also, as coaches, having done this for a long time, you have perspective. Again, this is my 35th college football season. I've got 13 years at Alabama and going on 22 here. So I try not to get too high or too low with a win or a loss. Try to have good, healthy perspective, and I think most coaches are that way. You got to move on. Big win, tough loss, you got to move on, because you want to have a great season. And so that part will probably change, and I think maybe how people schedule will probably change, in this era, because I do think strength of schedule will probably become a big factor, even more so as the playoff expands.
Sort of along those lines, I've talked to a few people about the over against Georgia. Obviously, it's going to be a big national game with a lot of eyeballs on it. It probably does not end your playoff hopes or anything if you lose that game, but it certainly, as you alluded, tells you a lot about who you are right off the bat. How important is it for you to make a statement in that game, do you think, beyond just, hey, we're still in it, win or lose?
Yeah, if you win it doesn't tell you much either. You still got to go win the next game. I think that's just honestly the way what it is. I just don't look at it that way. I think it's a huge game. This is the best team in the country to me the last 3 years in totality in Georgia. I don't think there's any question about that. They've been – you're coming right out of the gate playing a team like that. You find out where you are in that moment for sure, but you can't let that moment define the rest of the season. Even if you win it, if that's all about that, well, you get beat against App the next week quick. And if it doesn't go your way, and you just wallow around in that, then hey, it's gonna beat you 2 more times. So hey man, it's an opener, and regardless of who we play, you want to come out of camp and put your best foot forward. And this is just a situation where you got to be playoff ready. Game 1, play 1. So it is what it is, but it's exciting. It's a great opportunity for both teams. This is big time football right out of the gate with two really, really good programs, and again a team that I think has in totality been clearly the best football program in the country the last 3 years.
One other thing, sort of piggyback on that, you talked about the start of the schedule, maybe potentially coming into even a bigger part of the conversation. I am certain that there will be a point in the future where SEC or Big Ten is arguing, hey, our 9-3 is better than your 10-2 or something along those lines. How do you weigh strength of schedule versus in your games?
Well, I don't. We've always played a tough schedule here. We've kind of had that. All the way, you can go all the way back forever with us. We've been pretty much a 10 power. What are we now? We've been a Power 5 deal ever since I got this job. It was something that I really pushed for, and it's different. It was different then than it is now. At the time, my push on that with Terry Don was the only way I can really build this program and teach and change some narratives, if you will, was we need to go play people, and let's play anybody. And so we've done that. And if you check our record against, the best of the best, we've been pretty good. When you play the best of the best, you're not going to just walk in and win every time. That's not the real world. Look at the Chiefs last year. They didn't start off very well, did they? But nobody, what's wrong with the Chiefs? Well, they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I think, but when you're playing the best of the best, it's a few plays. And so I think we've grown our program by playing a schedule the way we've played. We know we're going to get everybody's best shot. We wanted to get to, we'd never been to a championship game. We went my very first year in 2009. We didn't win the game, but, we got exposed to that. And that's kind of how we've, built our program all the way through. And we've stepped out of conference and we've played a bunch of SEC teams. We certainly play South Carolina every year. We played Notre Dame. Being able to play a team like Georgia, I think is another opportunity, for that. But the now in today's world, that will matter for sure. When whatever the committee looks like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, just like you see in basketball, right? You see some teams that maybe have great records, but versus some teams that maybe don't have as good a record. But they give more weight to this team because, they lost to this team. And, okay, you beat this team. Different deal. So I think that's something that everybody will have to weigh on as they move forward.
Speaking of scheduling, Clemson turned down the ACC and ESPN's request to play South Carolina on Friday night. Did Graham ask you if you had an opinion on that? Do you ever foresee where you would want to play a game on Friday night in Death Valley?
Yeah, he did ask my opinion on that, and I was against it, for several reasons. I said we'll do it. I'm happy to go do it in Columbia if that's what they want to do, but I was against it because I don't think it's what's best for Clemson. I think sometimes we forget to do what's best for Clemson. And I think it's not what's best for this town. It's not what's best for this community. This is not some big city, the people in this town, they make their hay off of those Saturdays. And I think our students, for them, coming back here, because they're off, and for them being able to come back on Friday after Thanksgiving with their family and be able to be here and create the type of that's kind of, and again, I've been here 22, going on 22 years, so that's my perspective, you know, and what's best for our students, what's best for this town, you know, what's best for our fans, and what's best for recruiting. Because now that's usually a big official visit weekend for us, and to be in a big recruiting weekend. And now you're trying to get recruits here to leave their homes on Thanksgiving. That's hard to do. And some of them are playing, you know, on Fridays. And so that was my thoughts on it. I didn't, just my opinion. And Graham, I'm thankful that he supported that. And I'm glad it is where it is. But if they want us to go down there and play on Friday night next year, we'll do it. But you know, these Saturdays in the Valley are special, and they mean a lot to the fan base here. And again, if it was a normal week and we're in school and things like that, maybe it could have been a little bit of a different conversation. But you know, that wasn't something that I was for.
Coach, you're talking about this being your 35th season in the game. Obviously, that game has changed over the 35 years that you've been a part of it, college football. How do you not allow the added elements of portal and NIL and now lawsuits with the ACC? How do you not allow those to become a distraction to what you're building here at Clemson and continuing to build?
Just focus on what matters every day, what we control, and just our daily process that we have. I mean, that's the main thing. There's always things that are completely outside of your control. But we just try to keep the main thing. I mean, you know, lawsuits and all that stuff, that's other people deal with all that. You know, the other changes in college football, it's just integrated into what you do every single day. So no different than any other change that happens from year to year. But it's not a distraction. It's just part of what we do.
Wondering what you've seen out of your defensive front seven. Got a lot of dudes at linebacker coming back. Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz, another year older. And then on the defensive line, you got Pete Woods, TJ Parker. Just how good can that group of linebackers and defensive linemen be this year?
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, we got a lot of guys on that side of the ball that's got a little bit on their resume. But, you know, it's to be determined. You know, I think they got a lot to prove. I mean, we had 2 freshman All-Americans last year in TJ and Peter. But, you know, can they go build on that? You know, that neither one of them were elite last year. They have the ability to be great players, but they got to take another step this year. You know, there's a lot of things that they needed to improve upon, and they've worked really hard. And Coach Eason and Coach Rump are pushing those guys. I mean, we got guys. You know, Cape Hart, y'all saw him come on last year. Peyton Page, I'm proud of those guys and where they are and how they worked. But you know, there's a lot of guys that have a lot to prove, I think, up front that are eager to get the opportunity. A guy like Trey Williams, who's been kind of up and down throughout his career, really just injuries. And, you know, for him to be able to have a full spring and now a full summer, you know, I think he's a guy that could make some noise. We got some dynamic young players that, you know, like a Steph Island-Green, a Vic Burley, who haven't played as much, that I think can come along and add the type of depth. Jaheim, Armand, Hoffler. I mean, we got a lot of guys, but you know, I think a bunch of them are still a work in progress. And certainly we know what we got in Barrett and Woodaz. I mean, those are 2 big-time leaders for us, unbelievably committed guys. You know, Barrett came back, you know, to finish, and you know, we expect him to finish very well and to lead this group. Same thing with RJ. You know, we've got a good little veteran group in RJ and Venables, and Koval's coming back. He's going to be a third-year guy to go along with some really young, talented guys. Got like Khalil and Kylan, you know, and then we got some guys like Robert Billings and Kylan Webb that you know, didn't play as much last year, that are coming off of red shirts to mix in with that group.
You've had some freshman receivers have success here the last couple of years. Traditionally, going back a decade, you've had that. What do Wesco and Moore bring to this offense? Can they bring a different level of explosiveness?
Yeah, well, I haven't been on the field with TJ yet, so I can't really answer that. I'm obviously, we know what he did in high school, but haven't coached him yet. I mean, just, you know, what we loved about him in high school is easy to see. I mean, he's a big body, big-bodied receiver. He's got good collision balance and body control, and he's got elite ball skills. That's what we've seen on tape. We'll see what happens in camp. Wesco, I got a different answer because I've seen him since January, and I've had a chance to be on the field with him and coach him. And he's a kid that just took to it right away. I mean, he's a natural. Was not overwhelmed. Needed to really develop. He needed a big January to August, and he's not going to be a finished product this year. But he's made the strides that he needed to make to enhance his ability to compete. But the biggest thing is he wasn't overwhelmed from the speed of the game. He was not overwhelmed. I thought early on in the spring game, which was the first time he was kind of out there, that was the first time I saw he kind of looked like a freshman early. But then he kind of settled in to what I'd seen all spring. But the main thing with him is he just mentally took to it, like a fish to water. I mean, it was just natural. And that's what I'm excited about with him. So can't wait to get on the field with TJ and be able to kind of evaluate where he is. But it's a deep room. It's going to be a ton of competition. We're really excited about it, and man, just thankful that we've got the type of talent in that room, and more importantly, the health. I mean, we got 10 guys to go to battle with, and 2 or 3 good walk-on guys that really give us some good depth. But should be fun to watch.
You think there'll be any kind of learning curve for Woodaz moving to Mike full time?
There's always a learning curve anytime you're like doing something full time for the first time. But I think he's a natural. I mean, I think he's played enough football. He's got enough experience. He's guy's a worker, man. I mean, whatever he's needed to do to get himself ready to go have a great year, he's done that. And so I don't have any concerns about him. Not that he's going to be perfect and make every play and never bust an assignment, but I got a ton of confidence in Wade.
Yeah, well, you talked about how excited you are about that running back room. How has Jarvis Green come along? What have you seen from him in the spring leading up into camp?
Yeah, had a good spring. I mean, he's a natural runner. He's got good vision. Comes from a great program. Was well coached in high school. He really understands, our schemes and how to run the football. I mean, he's good in the passing game. I think the biggest surprise to me was how he picked things up in the protection. So just he's a guy that just need to see more of. Need to see more scrimmage reps. I think. Get into some game situation because he didn't get a lot of opportunity last year. So a lot of competition this spring. I thought he took advantage of it. Easy E coming in, a lot to learn. Game was kind of fast for him this spring. Big body, really fast, explosive kid. Hopefully I'll see a little more confidence in him when we get on the field. Jay Haynes, he's like. We've seen flashes of him, but every time we've gotten excited about him, he's been unavailable. He was literally getting ready to play last year and pulled a hamstring, and then later part of the year we were bringing him back. So, I'm cautious about him. I'm excited because I know what we've seen, but we just need to have him available. And if he is, I think he can compete. And then you throw in, Hammerhead. I mean, Keith's kind of his own deal. I mean, he's different from everybody when it comes to his style of play, and he definitely can help our football team. But Jarvis and Easy E and Jay, I think that'll be a great battle. But Jarvis he's just a natural, instinctive football player. Knows how to play the game. Knows how to use what he has. He's not as big as you'd like, but he plays big. He's not as fast as maybe you'd like, but he plays fast. He's just a really, really good football player.
You haven't had a running back average more than 15 carries a game since 2015. Do you anticipate Mafa sort of being in more of that Wayne Gallman type of role, or do you see one of those guys, or maybe multiple of those guys you just mentioned, getting a pretty hefty share of the?
I would say certainly early part of the year, I would I would expect that. You know, I think it'll all start with Mafa. I mean, there's just, you know, it's been a while since we've had, you know, that type of separation, you know, not necessarily from talent, but just everything else, you know, experience, knowledge, you know, really just totality of understanding and ownership of what you're doing. So I would definitely think, you know, at least early part of the year, you're going to see, you know, us probably hopefully hit more than that with Mafa. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Coach Spiller this morning was actually likening Bill's experience, his journey to his own, sharing the ball with James Davis for years, and then his last season he was the alpha guy. How do you see Bill kind of taking on that, or taking to that role of being the alpha?
Yeah, same thing. You know, Phil had a decision to make. You know, he certainly could have gotten drafted and gone pro, but I think he came back, you know, for that. I mean, he really wants to be the guy, and man, he has asserted himself that way. It's been fun to watch him because, as y'all know, Phil's kind of a quiet kid. It's been fun to watch him kind of find his voice, you know, with this team. I would say the same thing about Phil that I said about Barrett. I mean, he came back here to finish, and he's been relentless toward that pursuit ever since. And he's done a great job, you know, leading his room. He knows that we got some talented guys, but they're just not where he is, you know, from a experience standpoint. And so he's done a great job of really, I think, shortening the learning curve for those guys and really bringing those guys along, getting them ready, helping create confidence in them. We were smart with his reps this spring, just simply because we wanted to force the issue with those other guys. And obviously we didn't have Jay out there, so he'll be in the mix come fall camp. But I'm proud of Mafa. I mean, I really am. He's going to be representing, you know, one of our representatives at the media day next week. And it's again, that's what I love about my job is you know, seeing this quiet, not real confident kid coming out of high school to now who he is, and seeing that transformation. You know, that's the best part of what I get to do, and seeing that in these young people.
Remember you mentioned placemaking